Hi friends, Concy here from atop Serenity Hill. I'm also the host of the membership called the Creative Playground. That information is below in the description if you'd like to learn more about that. So today's video is about what to do when you don't know what to do. And so recently I gave my email newsletter list an invitation. I called it Layers, and you will see up on the screen in a minute this actual page so that you can read it through. You can also take a screenshot if you want. There's also a link to the newsletter in the description so that you can see what my newsletter is about and how I offer challenges and inspiration and invitations weekly. So if you want to join that, go for that. So the purpose of this was for them to take a set of 3 prompts, and they were actually, they're not only prompts, but they were, it was a photo. The photo is now up on the screen so that you can see what I'm talking about. It was a photo of this deck that we have made in the membership, my membership a while ago. And the deck is all actual supplies. So some supplies you might have, some supplies might be new to you. And it was a photo of the supply of this deck, and I offered them the chance to pick 3 to 6 of the items and then use the items to do something in these sections. And what I also ended up doing was writing an example out. So what I want to do today is actually work through this example of using tape, colored pencils, and bubble wrap. And we'll talk a little bit about this deck as we go, because you can always, this deck is available to my membership for them to make. So if you're in the membership, go find the deck. I will help, or email me, I will help you with that. And if not, you can always make your own deck. You just need to cut up bits of paper and write on it what supplies you have. So the way that this works, and the prompt that I had given them, was to take these 3 items, so tape, bubble wrap, and colored pencils. What tape was, what you did with bubble wrap, what the colored pencils were. They could have been, watercolor pencils, they could be Inktense pencils, they could be traditional colored pencils, whatever you want to do. You're like, it's just a supply. And so I was having them draw 3 squares, and then I literally said what to do. So we're going to do that, all right? The other option, I'm going to follow this exactly, and then the other option was to take square number 1, this one, tiny bits of washi, doodle with pencils, stamp with bubble wrap, and watercolor on top, and then just add the same items, but in a different order. So this was doing it in the order I told you, and then I was like, but what if you started with the washi? What if you started with the colored pencils? What if you started with the bubble wrap? What would it look like? Because each time you would do it slightly different and the layers would change. All right. So that's what we're going to do together today. So I had suggested squares or circles. Why not both, y'all? Why not both? So I'm going to grab, actually I decided I was going to use this Jelly Roll pen, and I'm going to draw both squares and circles, because why not? Nothing fancy, okay? And so I'm just going to draw some squares and circles on my page, and then we're going to work through the prompts so that you can see how you can take any supply that you own and be curious about it and experiment with it and see what different combinations you can come up with. This is not about making a perfect art journal page. This is about play and curiosity and just seeing what comes up and seeing what you like and how items react to each other. All right, so we've got our 3 prompts here. Tape, bubble wrap, colored pencils, those are our 3. And so square number 1 said, add tiny bits of washi. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Is I've got some washi tape here, and I am not even going to, I'm just going to grab 3 pieces of washi, and it says add tiny bits of washi. So tiny is relative, obviously. What does tiny mean to you? Does tiny mean long and skinny? Does tiny mean an itty bitty piece, as in, you know, you just cut off a little bit of corner, like that? You know, what does it mean to you, tiny? So I'm going to add some washi. And, you know, and it's also going to depend on your washi. Of course, this is a new roll. There it is. This one, you know, has these chevrons on it. And if it's not sticking, don't forget a glue gun. A glue gun. I don't know that I would use a glue gun, y'all. But a glue stick is always a good thing. Because, you know, old washi or cheap washi, that would be a good way of putting it too. Sometimes needs a little help. So this washi has some gorgeous flowers on it. And that might not be a tiny piece, but also it's yours. It's your design. You might start to rip the washi and realize that it's absolutely gorgeous and you want a whole strip. Then in the grand scheme of things, if you put a whole strip right here, it's tiny compared to the page. So like I said, tiny is relative, y'all. Tiny is relative. All right, so I've got some bits. I've got add tiny bits of washi. Whoops, can't put the glue stick cover on with a whirl of washi. All right, and then it says doodle with pencils. Doodle with pencils around the border. So I've got my colored pencils, and I have, of course, the rainbow, because why not? I also see this washi is not sticking really well. So glue stick to the rescue. Okay, and I'm also going to pull, oh, there it is, you know, colors from what's sitting here. And doodling, what does doodling mean to you? Doodling could have been specific marks. Doodling could be just what I'm doing, which is just, you know, scratching a little bit and making woggly. Is woggly a word? Wiggly marks. I'm also using, you know, would be a doodle, I guess, doing these circles. And I pilled. Wow, my voice and my language is working today, isn't it, y'all? I pulled the colors from this washi, and then I started with this one because this was my predominant color. Okay, and if it's not enough, add more. Okay, so I've done that. I've gotten to add the doodle, and then it says stamp with bubble wrap and watercolor. So I have some bubble. I have this huge piece of bubble wrap that I found recently. Something was mailed to me. And then I need some watercolor. And I can look to what's on this. You know, I don't have a whole lot of black, so maybe I will pick up some black, because it will start to pick up the black of that. Okay, so that's all I need in that square. Now, this could be the beginning of the next section, the beginning of a collage session. It could be that you have the perfect words to add to this. It doesn't matter. This can just be the experiment and the play for today, okay? So let's go on to the second section. So I did say square number 2, but that's okay. And you know what, we'll be literal. We'll do this square. Square number 2 says, doodle a bunch of circles with the colored pencils, all right? So that's all I have to do, is just doodle a bunch of circles. I'm going to be literal about it. For me, you know, what does that mean to you when it says doodle a bunch of circles? It could have been itty bitty circles. You know, you have to interpret this the way your brain works. You can also just copy me if that's helpful for today. So I've doodled a bunch of circles. Glue a piece of the bubble wrap down. So there's a new thing. And I'm going to actually grab my art glitter glue. And I have this, it has wet on it. I'm just going to smush it down. That was not on it, but hello, y'all. We can do whatever we want. So you might hear as I'm playing today and videoing, one, the neighbors are mowing their lawn, so you might hear that. And two, my dog, Sierra, is in with me today, so you might hear her. So just putting that out there. All right, so I've glued down a piece of bubble. I feel like I would like to have 2 pieces of bubble, and this is where prompts become your interpretation. If you're taking, pulling a prompt from someone's prompt deck, or, you know, a prompt that maybe is with a challenge that you're following, maybe on here on YouTube or on social media, then remember that it is meant to be a prompt. It's not the be-all end-all. It can be if you really want to just sit with that prompt and do it that way, or it can just be your interpretation of the prompt. I always love to see how many different ways someone can interpret a prompt. I think that's fun. Okay, so then I've glued down a piece of bubble wrap, and then I'm to add a couple strips of masking tape. Okay, and by the way, these were just randomly written. I didn't try this. You are witnessing me trying what I invited other people to do. So I literally didn't know what would happen. What would it look like if I was starting to add random bits of masking tape? Okay, the lovely thing about masking tape is that it is definitely paintable. So later, if I wanted to, I could add more paint. And I love that the masking tape's kind of disappearing. That's making me very happy. It's this masking tape, which I think I got this one at the Dollar Tree, is transparent or translucent, I guess. Transparent, translucent, however you want to interpret that. So you can see through it. Okay. All right. So that's the prompt. All right. Similar similar product, bubble wrap, tape colored pencils, and completely different outcome. All right. So let's do number 3. Stamp with the bubble wrap and an ink pad. Okay. So that's changing. I have this tiny little piece of bubble wrap, but that might be kind of hard. So let's cut another big piece. But this time, instead of using watercolor, I have chosen to use an ink pad. I don't know if it will work. Honestly, I just set it. Oh, y'all. That's the first time I have bubble wrapped with an ink pad. Well, that was a delightful experience. Look at the texture. Woo! Okay, I can see that being added to my repertoire. Now, I've been doing crafting and painting and art for a very long time. I've been art journaling for well over 10 years, probably more. And that is literally the first time I've used bubble wrap and an ink pad. You can always learn something new and try something new. This is why we do challenges like this, so that we can take the supplies. I mean, this ink pad is a zillion years old. I've had it forever. Bubble wrap has been around in our world for a long time. I use it all the time. But I never thought, put these two together until I wrote this for my group, okay, my community. All right, so that was the first thing. Stamp with bubble wrap. I actually now have it on here. And then the next we said, put a piece of Scotch tape, that's my tape, on a book page, rip it off, and then glue that piece onto the square. So I went even crazier with the tape, as opposed to just gluing masking tape. I thought what if we took the tape and did something else with it? So I'm going to do that. This is matte tape. This is an old book page. And that's what happened. It's no longer super sticky. Oh, I love that. And so I do need a glue stick. And I think I'm going to do that a couple of times. So depending on the book page, depending on your tape, sometimes it will remove, oops, I got a little crazy with that. Now I have to pull it off. Sometimes it might remove more paper than just words, but you know, again, experiment, try, see what happens. So let's glue this down. I need my glue book here. Oh, I love that. I mean, this is like making your own fabulous washi or a really fun stamp. I'll pull it up so you can see how beautiful. And now I feel like I might need a third piece. So I'm going to go back to the book. And add a third piece. My tape is ripping. Tape ripped a little, but you know, this is art journaling, or you know, you could think of it as a version of junk journaling. I'm using junk, I'm using old book paper and Scotch tape, bubble wrap. It's all like household junky things that, you know, most people get a package and throw the bubble wrap in the garbage. Look how fun that is. Absolutely love that. Okay, so then I glued it, and then it said, add a rainbow with the colored pencils. Now, here's the thing that might happen, which I know will happen, is that this tape might not hold the colored pencils really well, okay? But let's try. Red, orange. I'm actually going to go past it a little. Yellow. Got a little fancy with the red. I got a little too far down. Blue, indigo, and purple. Okay, so I ended up with Roy. And if you don't know who Roy, red, orange, yellow, G, green, Biv, blue, indigo, violet. Roy G. Biv. All right. And actually it stayed pretty good on the tape. So that's what these three prompts right here, bubble wrap, tape, and colored pencils did by pulling out different versions of tape, pulling out different, what you did with the bubble wrap and what you did with the tape, colored pencils, and bubble wrap. And I have three distinctively different things. Okay, so the other option that I gave was to take what I had said in square number 1, okay? It could be any of the squares. I just happened to have offered the square number 1. Do the same items, the bits of washi, doodle with the colored pencils, stamp with the bubble wrap, but do it in a different order. So you do it in a different order, you can do it in different colors, whatever works for you. So it said we already did the bits of washi. I mean, we technically did that already, okay? Bits of washi, doodle with colored pencils, and stamp. So let's start with doodling with the pencils around the border. Okay, so now I could get fancy. All right, and I could make some dots and start adding some little doodly flowers. You can see how precious and careful I'm being. Ha ha ha. If you have been around me a hot minute, you know that that's not in my vocabulary when it comes to creativity. And so I'm going to doodle around the border because that's what it said. The difference in the doodling is that this time I'm being making specific shapes as opposed to just scribbling. And then we could add some leaves, because what's a doodle without a leaf? Okay, boy, those are fancy leaves. All right, so I've doodled around the border. So then the next thing I did was I stamped with bubble wrap and watercolor. So I'm going back to my bubble wrap. And this time I'm going to try some green. I'm liking the green of the leaves. It doesn't stand out a lot. So then I'm starting to think about, well, what if this was like kind of a wreath, or I lay down some flowers in a circle like a mandala on the grass? I don't know. I'm starting to think, in stories, and what am I trying to say with this? I might not be trying to say anything other than watercolor on bubble wrap, stamp. Okay. And then it was add tiny bits of washi. So we'll make sure, I guess we need that to be dry. Now I could go and find a different washi, which maybe I will. Ooh, I like this. Similar flowers, but a little bit daintier. And start to add tiny bits of washi. So I'm adding to my garden in the grass. All right. It doesn't have to tell a story, obviously. It can just can be play. It really should just be play. I would encourage you. It looks like a great little, like a tree. Okay. And this, you could keep going. I could start coloring in, whoops, the doodles. Okay. I've got my yellow centers. Maybe I can outline the yellow centers with orange. Oops, well, I started it, I'm gonna go with it. So now every other flower is gonna be pink and yellow because I picked up the wrong colored pencil. And it can be that simple. What else do you want to add to it? Do you want to, ooh, that worked out beautifully. Do you want to, add some more black doodles around the outside? Do you want to add more leaves and curlicues? All of these things, now that you've gotten a start and seen how, a tool worked, or one of your supplies, how many different ways can you use bubble wrap in your piece? Okay. So I'm going to color in my wonky leaves. So it just gives it some more. I can then go grab, because I have this the doodle pen that I made the circle with. So now I can start even going more and seeing what else I can do to the piece. It's the beginning. It can also be the end, because it was just a fun experiment to see, maybe make some notes about what happened when you added the bubble wrap and all that stuff at a different time. But it's a form of grid journaling. Just, a lot of people do grid journaling where they do the same thing over and over, like, and just collage everything. So this is another version of grid journaling. It's just, squares and circles in a grid. All right, so there we have it. We started with that. So we've got 2 more things that we can fill in. And what other ways can we do this? If we were to start with the bubble wrap and the watercolor, it says stamp with the bubble wrap and watercolor. That would be, we're starting with that. Okay, well, let's try. Let's just pick a different color. Maybe some purple. We haven't done a lot of purple. And now I didn't even clean the bubble wrap, so it has green on there. Watercolor reacts to itself. Okay. Just gonna lay it down once and let it go. Okay, and we're gonna let that dry. So what other kinds of things do we want to do? Now I have access to all these supplies. I have my masking tape, which, I don't know, I just feel like I'm just gonna stick it down. I have washi tape, and I have my colored pencils, okay? I have my Scotch tape. All the things that I've pulled out, my book paper, I have all those things now at my disposal because I pulled them out to use. What if I put the masking tape on the book paper? I'm waiting for this to dry, which I can hit it in a second, but what if I put the masking tape on the book paper? Okay, it didn't pull up as much. It's actually prettier on the back. It could work different on different book paper. Ooh, that's pretty good. Actually, that came out pretty good. So you're gonna have to try, like, what does it do if you put it on a magazine page, okay? So before I even glue this down, I'm just gonna hang on to that. We're just gonna pop it right there. I love this, but it's boring. I have access. Yes, that's the right word. I'm like, is that the word I'm looking for? I think so. To watercolor, okay? So I'm gonna put it on the tape and rub it off. And look how fun. It stayed sort of on the tape, but it didn't at the same time. I love that. It's another texture to work with, okay? What if we emphasize that and come in with our colored pencils and start to emphasize where all the joins are for the tape. What would that do? What would it look like? It just enhances. I'm just spinning this around because it's just easier for me to work with. It just makes the tape stand out beautifully. Gorgeous. So I don't know, does this work here anymore? Probably not. So I'm thinking I'd probably end up adding this in here somewhere. Okay, so we're gonna hang on to that. But this, so we've got tape, colored pencil, and we've got, so we have tape, colored pencil, bubble wrap. So bubble wrap would be the last thing. Okay, so let's go. And I feel like I'm in a blue thing here. So I'm gonna put some blue watercolor. And we'll use the bubble wrap to decorate just the tape. Boop, boop. Okay. And maybe one, boop, boop, boop. There. Okay. So now we used all three, colored pencil, tape, bubble wrap, kept it in the same color family, and it just feels like it's screaming for a word, don't you think? All right, and so then now I've got my bubble wrap. If I was doing this, then I would need tiny bits of washi, but we're going to use a little bit of this. This is the masking tape. I might still use some washi. I have all these little pieces now sticking to my hand because I've decided that I need 5 strips. So then themes are starting to show up. Here's the themes. I had said the word grid. I ended up with a grid. I love doing a lot of things in grids. It's just part of my style, okay? Circles, spirals, grids. So what kind of marks do you make over and over again that then become maybe a part of your signature style? Yes, this is really fun, gluing these itty bitty pieces down. That was somewhat sarcastic, y'all. Somewhat sarcastic. The back of this tape is actually pretty interesting, but because you can see the words brighter than the front, but it's still a little bit sticky. So I would have had to figure out what I was doing with that as far as getting the sticky from being up, okay? Okay, so I've got that, but I'm feeling like I might need some more washi. What do I got in here? So I've got this really skinny washi that I can now start building up the grid or weird cross-hatchy thing that I started with the masking tape. And then the final thing would be the colored pencils. Okay, so I've got my itty bits of washi, and then the final thing would be the colored pencils. So I love what I did here. Can I do something similar? At first I was going to use purple, but honestly I think I want to use a different color. I think I'm going to go with orange because orange is it can pop the purple a little bit, and also because it's a nice bright color. You might have chosen something else. That's okay. It's the beauty of art is that we can all make our own choices. And so your choice might have been, you might have been like, whoa, I would not have done that. Yay! What would you have done differently? What other color would you have picked up? I like the pop of orange. Okay. So this is us working through bubble wrap tape and colored pencils and finding a way to just play with the different elements. So where in this can you decide, I love the way this looks. What if it was a bigger page? What if I use bigger pieces of bubble wrap? Like, you know, bubble wrap comes like this big. So bigger pieces of bubble wrap, bigger pieces of washi tape. What if I took some of that masking tape and laid it down and made some washi tape and then I used that? So where does the ideas start to take you? Do you love the idea, or I have never done the pulling tape on a book page? Could you, start with that? What about if it was a giant piece of packing tape and you had a big piece and you could start that on your page and maybe cover it with some clear gesso or matte medium just to be able to add on top of it? Okay. How do you like this? Do you love the idea that this was lines in a circle? What if you made circles all over your page and started filling them in different ways? All right. So I want you to take the ideas and see, what do layers mean to you? How can layers enhance your art journaling? How can you just play with them so that you can store and collect ideas for later? All right. And then don't forget, you can build this, your own deck. This is cardstock. I'm going to share that with you because it's cardstock that you can just, I stamped, watercolored, doodled, stamped, stenciled. I did everything. You can see everything all over a piece of cardstock. Just cut it up into a bunch of little pieces and then write on them the supplies that you own, or maybe supplies that you would like to own, but supplies that you own, and what ways can you just pull those supplies out of a little box, a little bag, whatever you're going to store them in, and how would you use them? A craft knife, photos, embroidery floss, a stapler, fabric, paper punches, stencils, okay? So basic supplies, and they would give you, like, how do I start today? I always feel like I'm using the same supplies over and over and over again. You grab in, you're like, ooh, photos. Don't forget, you don't have to take photos. We all have access to magazines, or we have access to the internet, or we have access to a junk mail that has a person's face on it. That's all a photo. It doesn't have to be you going and taking photos. It's how can you get a photo? What does it look like? Magazines are full of photos. The internet, if you can just print a photo, ask someone, go find a vintage photo, anything like that. What do you have hanging around your house? All those photos that we took when we actually printed photos, that maybe some of them just aren't useful anymore because the memory, you have like 3 of the same photo. Use that, okay? So I pulled embroidery floss, okay? That could be actually still slow stitching. It could be slow stitching. It could be that you just take embroidery floss and glue it all over the page. It could be that you bunch it up and staple it into part of a collage cluster, all right? And then scissors, y'all. Cut something off the side of the page. Use a pinking shear. If you're not sure what pinking shears are, this is a pinking shear, okay? Do you have fancy scissors that you can cut bits of paper and then glue them down, all right? So anything, it just gets you started. Prompts are always good that way. This is just using prompts where you're tapping into your own supplies, and maybe some of the supplies. This is also a good way to go and find the supplies you never use, those ones you bought that you thought, well, those might be fun, but then you never use them. This is a good way to put that in your list, in your deck, and then when you pull them, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I do own oil pastels. I do not. That's one thing I don't own. But I own oil pastels. I haven't used them in 3 years. Go get them and start playing with them and see what happens. All right. So thank you for joining me. If you are new here, don't forget to subscribe. If this was helpful for you, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. I would love to hear in the comments if this is something that you would try. Is it something that was helpful? What was one thing that I did on these pages that maybe was new to you, or sparked an idea, or just gave you a direction that you could jump into today with your own creative practice? All right, my friends, thank you so much. Take care, and I will see you in another video.